everybody. Hi, how you doing? And welcome to another episode of Create Your Best Life with Rex. I'm so glad that you're here and you're watching and that we're able to stream to multiple places. So just so you know, you're watching on rexsikestv.com or from YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or wherever you're watching. Hopefully, we'll be able to get all your questions and comments in the chat room. So go ahead and wherever you are, go ahead, like it, comment, ask questions. My guest today is Charlie Siegel, and he's a best-selling author of spiritual poetry, fiction, fantasy, and biography. His work is designed to bring hope and inspiration and to help flowers bloom in the desert or in the saddest parts of you. I'm so sorry I'm messing this up, but that's what happens when you're live, right? His work is designed to bring you hope and inspiration to help flowers bloom in the saddest parts of you. And his newest book is Awakening the Inner Light, to walk the path of the soul. And it's a book of 150 inspiring poems and short stories, each paired with one of a fine art, nature, wildlife, or sacred site photograph from the USA, Iceland, or Japan. And this book has received high praise as a book of powerfully life-altering writings, bringing the wisdom of ancient teachings into modern light in fun and approachable ways that stay with you through your day and bring light to the hard times. So without any further delay, I'm going to bring Charlie on to the show. And here's Charlie.
Hey.
Now, how you doing, Charlie?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Now, in addition to your own work as a photographer, as an author, as a poet, as a storyteller, you also have a famous grandfather.
I do. Yeah, Dr. Bernie Siegel is my grandfather on my dad's side.
And together, you and Bernie and I did a show a couple years back.
Yeah, it was nice being on. You were on the top of my list. I wanted to be back on your show again.
And I wanted to have you back on the show. Both you and Bernie are very special people, and you do so much to encourage people to live a good life and to help them. And one of the ways, obviously, that you're doing it now is through your works as an author, photographer, storyteller, poet.
Yeah.
And then your mom has the shop, right?
She does. Yep. So I feel fortunate that I have spirituality from both sides of the family. That way, my grandfather actually wrote the foreword for my new book. And then on my mom's side, she owns a spiritual shop and class center. So I've gotten to grow up really connected that way with roots into good old stuff to help you live a good life.
That's so very cool. Do you have a copy of your book that you can hold up and show us now?
I do.
It's a beautiful book, And I have the book, so that's very cool.
Awakening the Inner Light. That's a photograph I took in Japan just last year. I did for the cover. Got lots more photos all through it also. It kind of surprised me how big it is once I put it together. Like, man, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Absolutely. So, well, let's talk just a little bit first about you. And I mean, yes, you came from this family environment, but your path, how you chose to do what you choose to do, and how you chose to do what you choose to do. That is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And the work that you're doing today.
Yeah. So I've gotten to grow up meditating and connected into a spiritual way of life, and I feel like that's really led me on a path of seeing that. When I was 3 years old, my mom started Wisdom of the Ages in Connecticut, and she had grown up with my grandparents on her side, teaching spiritual classes and meditation practices, and just overall wanting to help people live a more peaceful, happier life. So she built the store out of all of that she grew up with, and I got to grow up seeing, you can do what really speaks to you inside that you want to do. You can do things that are going to help people. You can follow your own path that way. So really right in through high school, I started out with starting a photography business. That was some things that really spoke to me on, especially on nature, on wildlife, on helping people connect and remember that we're part of all the good stuff that's out there. And writing has just been something that's sort of come to me that I've enjoyed, and the inspiration for the pieces that I write feel like they just kind of pop into my head sometimes, and I let them come out on the paper. And it's surprised me how many have really built up over time.
Wow, that's really, really, really very cool. I want to ask you a couple of follow-up questions to that. One is, do you have a particular meditative practice or a spiritual practice that you that you do that you would share that other people might want to embrace? Or
She does lead like public guided meditation classes, like walking through guided imagery. But so I'll follow those, and like you're walking through like a nature scene. There's a little energy clearing in the meditation. I find those always helpful. It's kind of what I've grown up with. She's also walked me through more like kind of like deeper inside meditative practices where you're really like settling yourself. But for me, just like getting outside for even a few minutes and connecting, like watching the wind and the trees, looking at like the way the roots grow. I'm a very tree person. But that's really like a meditation too, and almost getting out of the idea that you're just you and like here in your own little box in your life, and getting into the idea that, well, I'm made of the same stuff as all the trees in the sky and everything. And that I have a whole one of 4 sections in the book is all on nature and nature connection. That's been like the big support for me in life, is getting out there and connecting that way. So I think that's meditation too.
No, I love it. One of my favorite things to do is obviously either sit or lie down. Sit barefoot or lie down out sit back in nature, and just listen to the different voices of the trees.
Yeah.
As the wind goes through the leaves, the different trees have different sounds. There's the different leaves shivering, in the air, and it's quite amazing the kind of concert that arises when let everything else go and just listen.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it really does change you that way. You go back to your regular life more like turn you off, plug you back in again, reset.
Indeed. So, Charlie, you're doing something that a lot of people may or may not get to do. Not everybody gets to follow their path and go, I like photography. Not everybody's a poet. Not everybody gets to be a musician or an actor or a storyteller, live the art life because they're busy doing other things. So the question that I have is how did you make that happen for yourself?
Yeah. So like it is tough, definitely, like living in modern society and figuring out how to do that. I've found doing it more of like a build up, bits and pieces at a time, growing it here and there. Every little bit helps that way. It's been a process. And like when I was in high school, I started with really just like an intro to photography course. And I had been like the kid walking around with those one-time use cameras all the time. And then got into like, well, here's some techniques, just an intro thing. And it really kind of clicked for me. And it was actually my mom here with the store that said that some of the shots I was taking for that class, she thought were better than the stuff she was getting in like those calendars in the mail from the donation places. And, make some greeting cards, try it out in the shop. And it started going. So I do some craft fairs here and there. I have it in some other stores. Probably the biggest thing is my website, naturephoto.com. Yeah, there it is on the bottom. And I started the website a couple years ago now, where it's got a large portion of my work, but it's fun that you can really custom get stuff like prints or just like fun gifts like mugs and tote bags and stuff. But even all the way back then, when I started, my idea was like, let's really appreciate nature more. And I like to photograph like tiny things, like little plants like that big, but I throw myself down on the ground and get things from their perspective. And the final shot looks like they're like massive trees or something. And that's some of my favorite thing is let's appreciate the little stuff.
Well, very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. I'm going to bring a comment back up because we have a celebrity filmmaker listening to us today. His name is Mark Borcher. He says, this is great stuff. It continues to snow and pray that winter lasts well into May. And as I'm listening to you guys, I'm getting a lot of things accomplished. Mark was the subject of a documentary film back in the 90s called American Movie. And Mark is a filmmaker and a director and a writer. And he's always very, very busy. So the fact that he's tuning in and listening.
Nice to have you watching, Mark. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know that he's ever listened to one of my shows before, but he's listening to this one. So this is very cool. And I appreciate Mark. And I appreciate you. So, but that said, that creative process is also part of, like whether it's creating a a poem or a story to tell that to accompany the photo, or to actually take the photo. Um, when it comes to your creative process, is there anything about it that, I mean, I'm just going to throw a generic question out first. Is anything about it that you would share about
Yeah.
how else you get inspired and how you translate that into either a poem or story or a photograph or all three?
Yeah, yeah. With writing too, like it's kind of always been in me as a little kid. Like I would go and play as a kid, but sometimes when it's like, okay, go play, I would be like, well, I want to sit with my notebook and write stories. And the grammar wasn't very good, but the stories were actually okay. But it's always been like my fun time and my like letting the creative feeling flow. Um, so I would do that, and then through high school they'd give you like, okay, you got a few weeks to write this short story. I'd do it in like a couple days and give it back like I had fun with it. Here you go. That was always my best thing. So I started to get these ideas for bigger stories, these inspirations for little poems, just kind of coming to me through the day. And my mom's store is called Wisdom of the Ages because it's all about traditional spirituality of the ages and bringing that to people today. So my work is really connected with like spiritualism now. There's some Christian themes, there's some Buddhist themes, and it's more generally like stuff to help people. It's not really locked into one thing that way. The fourth section of the book is more of like what I would call like a God section, connecting with God, like in yourself, in the universe, in your life, but in like a fun, light, approachable kind of way to help people. And that's what I've grown up with, is that like it's within you, it's also around you. And you can connect. So the writing has been interesting. That I actually listened to a interview with Stephen King once, where like we write different themes, obviously, but I think he's really cool and the way he writes. And he said that he has this theory that somehow there's these stories that like appear in his head, like they pop in from somewhere else, and then it's like his job to write them. Richard Bach had an interesting opening to one of his books that I like too, that he thought he was retired from writing and said he was just sitting in his living room and felt like the character of his next book like busted down the wall and came in and said like, tell my story. So that's what it feels like to me in that way also. And I feel honored to be similar in some way to those great writers, that these kind of inspirations just appear and be like, okay, write me now. So there's a few poems through the book that I put in italics at the bottom, like a place that I wrote it, like a certain spot when I was in Japan, that this place inspired this poem. But other ones, the poem comes first, and then I'll find, well, this photograph I took is in theme with that message. Let's pair them together. So it kind of goes both ways, the writing or the picture. I have some of both.
Well, I appreciate that, because David Lynch also said ideas are like, fishing. It's like the fish goes by, you got to catch it, when it goes by,
Yeah.
otherwise you miss it. You got to be open to it, but that they're all around you, which is
Yeah.
not unlike what Napoleon Hill and ancient wisdom says is, there's all this stuff that's out there in the ether.
Mhm.
Some of it's positive, some of it's negative, and you need to vibrate with what you want in order to create what you want. So, you align yourself with that, and then that opens up a path to bring more back to you.
That's nice. Yeah.
Now, on top of your meditation and on top of all this, let's segue just a bit, and we'll come back. But you're also a martial artist.
I am. Yeah, and that's actually my third book. My last one before this was on my martial arts teacher's life, and a biography of him and some about our training. I practice Daitryo Aikido Jiu-Jitsu, bit of a mouthful when you first say it like that, but it's the Takeda clan of the samurais family martial arts. So like Japan itself considers it a national treasure, and you're training the same techniques and everything that the samurai and even before that, going back to like 800 or so, they were starting that art. So that I practice that. And my third book, To Become a Living Art, is on my teacher, because he's the highest ranked non-Japanese person ever in this part of the art. He grew up in the Bronx in New York City and then ended up being into this. So interesting life. We were both talking like, this would make a cool story. It's inspirational. We'll put it out there for people.
It's amazing what, I live in the Midwest as well as in Los Angeles, and And what I learned about the Midwest, I have relatives in a city a couple hours from me, and from that city, there's one about 10 miles away that nobody would know. But in that town, I don't know if he's still alive, was like one of the top Aikido masters,
Oh,
not
nice.
not an Asian master, but living there
Yeah.
in this little town of nothing, in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere. But here
Yeah.
was this incredible presence of of a talent, of a mindset of Aikido practice. So
That's
uh,
awesome.
that's pretty cool. What
Nice.
what is it about martial arts for you in terms of the discipline that it brings? I mean, people now, Cobra Kai has made a resurgence,
Yep.
great series. People are, there's karate classes, all, and taekwondo all around, the country that kids can take and things like that. But the essence of the martial arts and the philosophy of the discipline of the philosophy, um, how do you embrace that, and could you share the benefits of engaging in a practice like that, and how not just being equipped to defend oneself, but how that applies to other areas of your life, so that people get what mindset and these disciplines are all about?
Yeah, for me, it's really a path of inner practice. It's for a while you work on self-defense, and some people come to it for that. But pretty soon you can figure out how to defend yourself, and then it really becomes an art. And for me, it's like, how beautiful can it be? In the art we practice, it's how connected can you be, both within your own body and with the person that's literally attacking you. There's a softness to our practice after you've done it for a while, and you're working on connecting with that person. It can be like violent if it had to be, but it can also be very soft and just kind of diffusing that attack. There's a sense of really working on yourself that comes with it. That I started martial arts when I was just 4 years old. I went to a neighborhood kid's birthday party where they had it at a karate school, and it's like an early memory. I still remember some of that party. But my mom says I went over to her. She was sitting on the side and the kids are off watching the demo, and I like make a beeline over and go, I have to do this. And like, I don't sound like a little kid. And she signed me up the next day, and I've been in it ever since. And that was a Kempo art. So more like striking, kicking, that something that kids can get into more. I trained that for 19 years and was teaching that for a long time. And now this art, I met my teacher 17 years ago now, but I've been really intensive in it for about 8 years. And I travel around with him because he's got sort of a circuit of seminars that he does. I'll go and like fly out somewhere with him so I can train with other people and develop more myself. But this art really is more of like, it's an internal art. So you work on like the feeling within your body, the feeling that you're putting into the other person. But yeah, a lot of like character development kind of stuff is in there for sure too.
Well, that's really, really cool. I mean, I now have many more questions. The first thing I want to do before I ask the other questions is I love the statement that pretty soon you figure out how to defend yourself, and then you can go on to the beauty of it, and
Yeah.
the depths of it, because I think some people just think of it as, okay, I can kick ass. And
Yep. Yeah, and some of it depends on the art too, like how deep it goes. For me, I always wanted to do something historical and internal, and that you can think of like external or internal martial arts. External, you're more like following a shape, moving in a form, smashing into stuff, you could say. And there can definitely be beauty to like the way they do their forms and everything too. But I've always felt called to the internal arts, where you're working like really subtly on creating a certain feeling in yourself. And in our To Become a Living Art book, in the last 3 chapters, he's my teacher, Goldberg Sensei, is a physical therapist too. So he makes some interesting like comparisons on like, okay, this is in physical therapy, this is how you're creating some of that feeling in our training. And that you do a lot with like the tone in your body and stuff, which takes like daily practice to really create that feeling. So it's fun for me, keeps things interesting.
right, it's incredible. So and the name of that book was what?
To Become a Living Art. And the life story of Roy Shing and Goldberg Sensei.
Because you have 4 books.
I do. Yep.
So and we're going to be talking about the 4th one today, but
yeah.
But well, on top of that, the notion is, some people understand that at a certain point you get really good at defending yourself so that you don't have to fight. You have
Yeah.
the confidence to be able to walk away too, and not to, it's not all about kicking butt. It's about knowing if you need to or not, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that too is one of the most beautiful things with developing a martial arts practice. That maybe if you needed to use it, it's there. I always say that I'm grateful I've never had to use it, but you could kind of sort of zoom out a little bit and be like, well, I have used it by not having to use it. Like it's diffused situations where maybe I could have. Sometimes just being aware of like how close you are to somebody and what that means to them, and being like just out of or inside that range and how that can change a situation, to diffuse it. That's been really interesting that way, and made life more peaceful in some senses.
Well, it leads me to then suspect that it's not just about, performing the actions, but about having the presence of mind to de-escalate through your words or through your behaviors or through walking away. In other words, you can carry the practice or the discipline into the art of conversation as opposed to just fisticuffs.
Definitely, yeah, and definitely, and that there's some elements of it where, like for me, knowing that you could defend yourself if you had to creates it where you don't have to. It's like, well, I don't have to like test this. I don't have to like stand up for this physically. I like it's like their opinion is whatever. I'm going to go over here. Just kind of being more comfortable that way.
So if you don't mind, can we go through your 4 books? The first one.
Yeah. My first one was in 2017. It's Conversations with an Angel, a story of healing through the passageways of grief. So it's a very short novel. My direction, like I love what I've done with the short writing so far, but my direction in my next works are going to be much bigger, like fiction fantasy novels, but with a spiritual feel and sort of archetypal metaphoric things that people can pick up support from, but be entertained by the story at the same time. That's where I'm headed. And the first book was a mini version of that, you could say. And it's all about helping people that are going through grief or loss. And that was something I see a lot in my mom's store growing up around here, people coming in looking for help when they're going through such a rough time in life. So I saw that and I'm like, well, that's sort of a topic I can zone in on and help with. And it's a fictional story, but it's written in the first person. And I wanted to write it where it's like you'd believe it as you're going through. I've had people ask me like, when did this happen to you? And I'm like, it's a fictional story, but I'm glad that it connected like that, because it's the way that I write that and the way I'm going to write the bigger ones. It's the themes that are true, like the way the character is dealing with his grief, the way he's connected with in the story he meets an angel that teaches him like what it's like on the other side for the person who passed, how they can bring signs and messages, so that like the themes that way are helpful and just the character's fictional.
That's great. No, that's great. And book 2?
And book 2 was with my grandfather. That was what we were on last time for.
Right.
So, When You Realize How Perfect Everything Is was our book together. It alternates our poetry throughout it and has some of my photographs in it. It was interesting with that one. We email a lot for like sharing things we're working on and fun ideas and stuff. I'll send him new pictures and new poems I wrote and see what he thinks. And I had sent him a few poems I wrote. He emailed me back a document of his, and I was reading through going like, okay, he wrote these. Like, how do some of them have the same titles and the same metaphors and stuff that I wrote? But we wrote them decades apart without knowing the other one wrote any of that. So we ended up lining them up in the book where it reads like a conversation, but they were written independently.
Wow.
So it became pretty interesting that way. Yeah.
So this book, and poetry and prose, so my question to that is, why poetry? And I mean it this way: some people love poetry, some people could care less. Some people love poetry and prose, but they favor one versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose some would argue that poetry is more like a song because there's
like the structure and stuff
The
to it.
structure of it is like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost the word that I was looking for there, so thank you. But yeah, the structure of it is a lot like maybe a song, or you could put a poem to music fairly easily, I suspect. Um,
Yeah.
but how is it that poetry speaks to you, and what are you trying to do through poetry to speak to others?
So in my poetry, there are a small selection through there that follow a certain structure to them, but a lot more of what I write is just sort of what happens when I write. Um, it's an interesting process that way. That there's an idea I had at one point that it's almost like building a mountain or something. Like I feel this sort of little seed inspiration start, and then I'll load more onto it, and I'm like walking around living my life. And okay, well, in the second piece of it, I want to get this idea across, and then suddenly I'll be like, well, in the end of it, I want to turn it back around to this idea instead. And then I'll just feel one day like I got to write it right now. And once I start typing, it just kind of comes out. It's not organized in my head very much ahead of time. If anything, it's almost like I hear the lines of it as I go to type it, or write it. I've done some handwritten, some typed. It just kind of happens. And then some of them I'll go back and edit slightly, like, oh, I could touch that up a little bit. But most of them I write, and there you go. I'm happy with how it came out. But for me, it's like that seed inspiration, and then the explanations of it are the build up around that. Like, okay, this thought I feel like would help people. That's really the core point of my poetry, is like it's 160 something pieces in there of individual separate thoughts, where like this thought, if somebody opened it, read this, it's going to be a change for the way they think, the way they interact. And it's usually something I've learned like in my mom's spiritual classes, in my practice that way, in the way that I see things through my photography and noticing nature, something I felt in my martial arts practice. There's some kind of background to it, but it's not always like, okay, I learned this and now I like copy and paste it over here and word it. It's sort of a combination of things I've experienced, and it'll express as this poem. So I lined them up through it where you can read it all in order, or you can just open the book and you'll see what the book happened to open to help you. And it's meant to be helpful pieces that way, all individually. And then if the poem gets a little longer, it becomes a short story, kind of spreads out. It's structured differently, but there's pieces where like, okay, in this poem, there's these two people talking and they share this message through the conversation. Then if they had things happen to them, right now it's more of a short story as it expands. So there's some short stories mixed in there also. And sometimes I put my poems on photographs. Like before I had books, really, I was making like fine art poetry prints with my pictures. And then there's some pieces that were like, okay, this is too big to put on a picture. And that was actually how my first book came about, was the story is too long for a picture. So I'll work on it, expand it a little more, and make a book out of it.
Without putting you on the spot, is there a poem or two that you'd like to share while we're here?
It'll be nice. Yeah, I can read a couple things from the book here.
Sure.
It's been interesting hearing some people that have bought the book and are using it as almost like a deck of affirmation cards that you pull something from in the morning for something inspirational. It was funny. A couple people, one lady was joking, like, are you like in my head with this book? She's like multiple times now, she's got something on her mind and it opens to that topic, and it has a response in a way to it. So that's the coolest thing for me to hear, that it's out there working like that.
A book of divination.
It's nice. So the book goes through the foreword by my grandfather, an introduction from me to some of my background and views and stuff. That's working on the like awakening the inner light, really explaining the message of the title that way, that it's working on finding that light within you, like we all have, bringing that up. And there's a few points in that introduction where I look at, there's like all different world religions have some kind of sense of there's something beyond our bodies that is really us, that's in us, like the true us, and how your body is also you, but more temporary. And how that piece within you is a piece of something greater than just the individual soul self. You got a piece of God, if you will, or however you would see it. That's a piece in there that you're a piece of that expanded into a little you that's out in the world living your life. But it's like connecting back to a bigger source, remembering you're part of that. I name a whole bunch of beliefs from around the world that celebrate that idea, and how that is. There's so many different themes through the book, but that is a continual theme. So I have 4 sections. So we have the light within us is more like emotional healing, inner work on yourself, like personal things. We have the light between us that's more about relationships and connection with other people, with the world around us. I have the light surrounding us, that's all nature. And then I have the light of the world that's more specifically spiritual and God-focused poems. So today I was thinking of one of the ones in the nature section here. Faces in the Trees is one of my own favorites. Thought I'd do that one today. And each one has a photograph with it. I'm holding the color paperback version today. So this is the photo for Faces in the Trees. Is an autumn leaf on rocks in Vermont with water there. But there's photos from all around Iceland, Japan, and the U.S. That's another nice one with the rainbow and the glacier in Iceland. There's wildlife, all kinds of things. But yeah, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so Faces in the Trees. Faces in the trees, they watch me moving amongst the leaves, and they ask me why I carry this bundle around with me. To them I appear like they do, covered in a storm of whipping leaves, golden yellows and autumnal oranges, shifting and moving amongst the dancing wind. But my bundles are still kept quiet inside my heart. You have to let the wind touch it, they whisper to my listening ears as my feet wander the paths, formed by the sunken trunks of their ancestors, given back to become the earth itself. You must let it go into the wind and see what happens. But my bundle remains tight, while I see their branches shifting with every passing breath. The leaves appear like flamenco dancers amidst a twirl, trusting wholeheartedly that when they let go, someone will catch them. But their partner's dance is too wild, too erratic in the fray. Already the wind is gone and the leaf comes tumbling down. But that is not a problem, for the tree realizes that the leaf was never the real thing anyway. The tree is what is still upright. Its leaves were but temporary emotions, objects, playthings to release to the autumn wind when the time came, and they too will become nourishment for the things to come. Let your burdens go in the wind, they say again, and I give it a try. Softly, slowly, I open a little corner of the container in my heart and let the wind pluck one leaf forth. Before I close it, though, I see the beauty with which the leaves shower to the ground. I can be part of that, I realize. My leaves can help create that beauty. So I unshutter the box, I unstopper the drain. I release it all in one great gust, and before I know it, I'm atop the tallest mountain in all the region. My leaves fluttering out over the wilds to decompose and land among the apple trees, the maples, the redwoods, the children. For these problems I bore today were bare fruit. These issues now dancing joyously over the hills and valleys on their descent will be called my teachers when the time comes to explain, to share, to remember. For these leaves I carried were mine all my own, but in letting them go I receive a new level of understanding. Faces in the Trees.
Wow. Now, for some people, they will get it and they will go, okay, it speaks to me. And another person would say, Charlie, what does it mean?
Yeah. So this one is looking at the comparison with trees in autumn are letting go of things that don't serve them anymore, that are some kind of past experience that they're hanging on to, and then it's time to let it go. And that you go through the section where they worry about, well, what's going to happen to it when I let it go? Maybe it won't be taken care of and caught, and then they just really let it go. So then the person in it is looking at, okay, I have these past experiences sort of like stuck in me. How am I going to handle this? And they decide it's beautiful to let it go too. And realize the experiences of their past become their teachers. And just like the the leaves that decompose to become the earth, your experiences will become something else. You just got to let it go first.
Oh, it's great because it's like, we anthropomorphize animals. We make them, imbue them with human attributes, and whether they're there or not. I mean,
Yeah.
and the same thing with trees or leaves or whatever. We can learn lessons from the trees letting go, and
Yeah.
apply it to ourselves. So I mean, yeah, it's beautiful.
Thanks. The more I write, I feel like I just start to see that everything is the same. It opens up more like, yes, we're more a little like free thinking in a way. Our brains are different. You can think of it like we have different inside of us than animals or other things of nature. But in the same way, we're still part of nature while we're here living on Earth. So, like, how would it be but not the same? I just keep seeing all these parallels, and it makes it fun that way to make them beautiful, point them out.
No, that's fabulous. I have an analogy or a metaphor for how I think of consciousness. It's certainly hard to describe, but the human body is trillions and trillions of cells,
Yeah.
and those cells are all part of one human body, but they work simultaneously and sequentially. So they're doing different functions. They have, like, there's skin cells and fingernail cells and brain cells and heart cells and liver. I mean, there's all these different kinds of hair cells. They're all cells, but they have to cooperate and then work together, but independently too, doing the particular functions.
Yeah.
So our body is kind of a representation of our universe, in that we have all
Yeah.
these different people doing all these different things, and we have animals and trees and plants and fish and birds and all, and they're all doing something. But they're all alive, and
Yeah.
then they're all simultaneously or sequentially doing things. Now, in the same way that sometimes the body has things go wrong or attacks, a cell attacks another cell or something like that, we do the same thing in our universe, in our
Yeah.
country, in our globe or whatever. But we're
Right.
just one thing.
Yeah. That's true. I like that way to look at it.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
makes sense.
we're all the same, but we're different, but we're all the same.
Right. And that's like my mom had some Native American teachers. I've grown up around lots of nice Native American friends. And one of the things in my introduction is looking at the Lakota teaching of all my relations. And it's pretty much that idea, looking at that we're all related. We're all really part of one thing. And you can look at the physical element of that and the spiritual element of that too, that what's in us is all part of the same great thing.
Well, what is amazing to me is how long will it take humans to realize we're one species made up of all sorts of different colors and shapes and sizes and talents and abilities and preferences and opinions and all that kind of stuff, encased in a glass, like a bubble, on a
Yeah.
rock, going around the sun, going
Yeah.
the solar system, going through the universe. I mean, I mean, whenever I think about how infinitesimally small we are, but
Mhm.
how incredibly large we are at the same time. But
True.
we're just one species.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It is. It's interesting. And I always like that in Shingon Buddhism from Japan. I've gotten to go a few times to Japan with my martial arts teacher for training. And then I always stayed after and did photography too. So that's where some of the shots in the book come from. But this last time, it's actually the cover of the book here is a path through Koyasan in Japan. So it's a mountaintop temple town. And this is a lantern lit path there. That's a World Heritage Site, about 1,200-year-old practice there. And one of the core teachings of it is that everybody has a Buddha, like an enlightened full them, like living within them, waiting to be realized. And one of the writings of the head of this temple, when it was first founded back then, was realizing enlightenment in this very existence. And his whole point was like, you can figure it out now and like realize you're part of everything and like live a good, happy, peaceful life. And it doesn't have to take forever and like take lifetimes, like some things would say. Like, you can do it now. You just got to realize it's there and work on it. I always like that way to think of it. Takes
No,
work. It's
no,
good for people.
that's very true. Very cool. Um, would you care to share another?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll pick something from another section here. Let's take a look.
So while you're doing that, I'll just let the audience know that this is in replay. It'll be available at Create Your Best Life with Rex, the YouTube channel. I know that we're also broadcasting to Facebook, I believe Instagram and LinkedIn. And so wherever you find the show, feel free to like, comment, even question during the replay. You can ask questions. We'll try and answer your questions. Charlie can come, wherever he is and maybe answer a question if you ask him. I will as well, all my guests at different times. So feel free to like the show, subscribe to the show, certainly, and share the show, and then leave comments of what you how you thought or what you felt or what you like, and then ask questions if you have questions. And Charlie, you're ready for another poem?
Good. And yeah, I always love to hear which pieces people connect with and what they think of it or how it made an impact on them. That's a lot of fun that way. I found two actually, so I can give a good little overview of different things in the book. Our first one here is The Light on the Horizon. I feel like it really applies nicely for things we're going through today. This is the
Can you hold it? I'm going to ask you to hold it to the other side, because when I look at it, I see it. It comes up behind your behind your name on the photo.
Yeah,
there you go.
Just up a little bit here. Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah.
So this is the photo. This is Iceland, northern Iceland at dawn, and two little birds. They're hard to see over the computer here, but
Sure.
Two little birds flying together to the snow-capped mountain. Okay, The Light on the Horizon. This is from the Light Between Us section, so more about connection and relationships. There's a light on the horizon telling me it's all right. There's a light on the horizon, and so I mustn't be afraid. There's a light on the horizon, and it tells me it's all right, and so I follow its direction. Where does this light come from? When will I get there? How many of us can see that glowing brilliance? I so want to reach it. There's a light on the horizon, someone else says, facing the opposite direction than I. There's a light on the horizon telling me it's all right. Minute by minute, the steps we take bring us closer together and to a place of brighter light. There it is, there's the light, I see it, they exclaim, utterly peaceful and completely content. It's you, I see it, they shouted. I raised my head as I did when I had first seen the light, beckoning to me in the distance. The light was there right before me, and they were smiling and reaching out their hands. I grasped their hands tightly and looked deep into their eyes. They shone with the inner light of the heart, awake and alive with pure vibrance. It is you, I see it, I said back to them. We nodded to each other. The sun rose behind us as we stood, basking in the radiance of the universe and the light of our souls. You are my light on the horizon, and I yours, we said together, beaming in brilliance and soothing serenity. Let us each shine our light so entirely that the heavens may stand witness that each of us is a part of the great light of the universe, made greater by everyone who shines their light out through their actions and lives. May we all see that we can be the light on the horizon for someone else. Simply by being ourselves, lending a helping hand, sharing a smile, we can be the light on the horizon for others on this path called life.
Absolutely necessary in this day and age.
Yeah, I felt like it applied nicely. We can be that for each other.
Well, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And
yeah, exactly.
To share that light is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I thought I'd look up one here from the final section.
So while you're doing that, I'll just remind the viewers that you're watching Rex Sikes TV at rexsikestv.com, or you're watching from Create Your Best Life with Rex, the YouTube channel, or from Charlie's Facebook or Instagram, or my LinkedIn and YouTube.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Nice to be on the show. Okay, so this one is the closed loop. It's a bit longer, one of the longer ones in there. I thought it would show a nice comparison of different themes, though.
Sure.
This is another photograph here. This is actually from the previous poem, from Turn the Other Cheek, but it's Northern Lights over a church in Iceland. I figured while I'm on this page, I'll show that one too. I've got a whole Aurora Borealis section on my website from when I went to Iceland, and actually I got some shots here in Connecticut when it came surprisingly south recently. It's with a little bit of light painting on the church, long exposure picture. I love getting the stars in the background that way. And then the picture for the closed loop that I'll read is actually from Koyasan, that the cover is from. You can see in the corner there's a monk pulling the rope to ring this bell here, and there's a mention of like ringing a bell in the poem, so I picked that picture. Okay. Rain, I hear it pitter-patter on my window pane. It comes to wash away the stains of life placed upon my heart. Yet as its sounds drift so delightedly to my ears, I wonder as to why, oh, why don't I hear the sounds of the waters within me pitter-pattering in such a way? I hear my heart as it thuds its way on through time, but as the blood pumps through my body, I realize it flows in a closed loop from my heart through my arteries and back through veins. So I think I must hear the rain because it is in an open loop, falling from the skies and spreading out over the world as I hear its gentle grace and drum, drum, drum across my window pane. But no, I realize on second thought, it is really a part of a much larger closed loop than my body. On such a grander scale than myself, the waters of the earth rain down across the land before eventually evaporating back up into the atmosphere to return once again in a new form. And so I hear my thoughts come to think, perhaps there's more to the way I think than what it seems to be. If the rain is in a closed loop so much bigger than my body, what if my thoughts are really in a closed loop with heaven so much more than I can even comprehend? While we know the size of the human brain and can calculate such things medically, it can be said that the mind that lives within, expressed through the physical brain, and the soul that lives within the heart, housed within the physical body, are so much bigger than I have ever come to know. Within the mind is like the vastness of space, yet owned entirely by the person who dwells within it. Yet even in this vast emptiness and potential for creativity and thoughtfulness, there's something on the other end of that mind space, giving and receiving. I feel you, God, I whisper warmly and with gratitude deep within my heart. Please help me, God, I whisper serenely within my mind. I love you, God, I shine forth wholeheartedly from within my soul. And I feel the loving embrace as the closed loop that I always knew was there circulates back to me, even faster than my heart can pump or the rain can fall. For God is always there, profoundly present and eternally with us. I love you, my child, rings through the trees and echoes through my mind. My heartbeat seems to thrum with it. I hear it now like waves of vibration ringing off a bell that is struck. My thoughts are the bell, I thought, and the sound waves are the sweet guidance and blessing that are sent to me from God in a closed loop of which we're all gifted to be a part. But how many times has the bell been struck on the other side of the closed loop, sending help, support, and guidance, dreams, awareness, and blessings into me from the great beyond? Perhaps we're more guided than we know, and as we receive these messages and release our thoughts out into the universe, I pray that what we send back and forth in this closed loop eventually turns out for all beings to be love. The closed loop.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Very, very cool. So how did they get your book? I mean, can they get it from your website or from your mom's store? Do they get it from Amazon? How do they
all four of my books are on Amazon, but you can get autographed copies from me. I actually have 4 different versions or formats, of my newest book. So if you look up Charlie Siegel on Amazon or Awakening the Inner Light, I would just put to walk the path of the soul after Awakening the Inner Light if you're searching it. So you make sure you find this. I have one listing on Amazon that is the ebook, black and white paperback, and like a hardcover collector's edition that's like full fine art kind of prints inside it, really nice. And then there's a second listing that's this color paperback that I've been holding up here too. So you got options that way on what you're looking for.
And then you're also on Instagram at author Charlie Siegel at Nature Photography by SC.
Yep, yeah, author Charlie Siegel, Nature Photo by SC on Instagram and on Facebook. And so you can message me on either one of those, or my website, naturephotoBySC.com, has like a little contact thing where you can email me too. you can order autographed copies that way. That's always fun to do for people. I've got copies of all 4 of the books to be able to do that with. And then on my photography website has some people, it's nice, have told me they just like to go through it like on a lunch break. And it's like a little meditative thing going through and looking at pretty things of nature. And then it amazes me still how many things you can get them printed as like little gifts or different kinds of wall art.
Well, I think a lot of people, one of the injunctions or one of the things that, we try and put forth with people to stay inspired and to feel grateful and to remain positive, especially during turbulent times, personally or world, calamity, that kind of thing, is to fill their mind by reading, or listening to audios and things like that, but filling their mind by reading inspirational material. A lot of people think, well, that just means, these prose books from thought leaders from ancient times to modern times, but it's also true that they can be inspired by photographs and by poetry and by the different ways that you represent inspiration and or positivity.
Definitely. Yeah, that I love that, like, picture's worth 1,000 words kind of thing. Like when I work on my photography, for me it's really all about representing nature. So it's been funny sometimes, like when I've done some shows, I've had people walk up and be like, "Oh, good job, like in Photoshop making that up. It's cool looking." And I'm like, that's kind of the coolest compliment because it's real. So it's like so pretty it looks fake, but it's real. And I work on like getting the lighting just right, and I'll process in Lightroom was where I learned to do it. That I went to Iceland and did a couple of like in the field classes where I got to do photography but learned some things at the same time. And it's all about processing it just to the point of real, to show off how beautiful it really was. And that a lot in there.
I think that is an excellent compliment to say it looks so good, it must be fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't be real, you don't know it is real.
I was just joking the other day that's my kind of thing. Like in the martial arts practice we do, it gets so subtle the longer you train, it doesn't look like you're really doing anything. And people are like, well, how can that be real? That's kind of a cool compliment. It just takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. The hard stuff looks easy when it gets to be when you're mastering it. So.
Yeah. And photography, definitely having a nice like a piece on your wall or something. I like to really get a lot of stuff in there. And if there's people in my photos, for the most part, they're like tiny silhouettes of people that just show off how much bigger nature is. I rarely ever have anybody in there. But it's like should have a whole lot in there is my goal, that you can sort of meditate on a piece, go into it, get like an inspiration and a message from just a picture that way.
Beautiful. So for anybody watching all this time, they already know this, but if you just tuned in, you want to go back and you want to look at Charlie's Instagram addresses so that you can contact and connect with him there. You find his work on Amazon. You can also see the scroll down below. We'll also give his website for, well, here, let me see if I can get briefly. Here's the nature photography website, and then your mom's store.
Yep.
And your Instagram accounts, so that they can reach out to you that way. Charlie, we got about a minute left or so together. So I want to give you a final word, the thought of the day, or what you'd like to leave people with.
It's been great being on, and I feel like we all need a little more light these days. So it's nice that I'm glad I can be a piece of that. I really want to spread the work I've compiled this way. I wanted to get it into one volume here, so I can just hand this and it can do what it can to help you that way. There's such a variety of messages and themes in it. I hope it reaches out and helps. And the photographs in it, you can read the piece and then meditate on the picture, let it just kind of settle in. And I'm always happy to talk to anybody who wants to reach out. And you had the wisdomoftheages.biz on there. That's my mom's store. And we kind of specialize in crystals and peaceful healing things. So we ship stuff out all the time too. If you're not around Connecticut, you can reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you. It's always nice.
And they can look at the website, Wisdom of the Ages, and they can see what you have available on the website there for.
It's like informational, what we got going on and stuff. And then the store has its own Wisdom of the Ages. I think it's Wisdom of the Ages _ CT on Instagram, and it's Wisdom of the Ages store on Facebook. You can see all the new stuff and everything that way.
Well, very, very cool. Well, Charlie, I'm so glad that you were here. I love your work. I'm glad to have the book, and I wish you much, much success with this book as well as all the other books. And love to you, and love to Bernie.
Definitely, I'll pass it along. And wonderful to be back on. I appreciate you so much.
And we'll do it again in the future, and we'll get Bernie back on with you sometime.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll see you in a little bit, but thank you for being here and for making our day with your impressive work.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Charlie Siegel, go get his book. I promise you, you'll be delighted. You'll love it. Get an autographed copy. I think that's always a great way to go, and just love looking at it and being inspired. And as you said, you can just pop it open and read different places and get inspiration from it. And so you're going to do it is what I say. So I also want to tell you about my book, and because I would be remiss if I didn't. And I want you to discover the secret to living life on your terms beyond wealth, success, and influence. Now, let me ask you, are you an achiever who's devoured books like Think and Grow Rich or The 4-Hour Workweek, Becoming Supernatural, or Awaken the Giant Within? Are you reading those? Have you applied every tool and technique that you read, and yet you still feel like something's missing, like a gap between the life you have and the life that you know you're meant to live? So my book, Life on Your Terms, is the missing piece that you've been looking for. Unlike other guides that teach you what you should do or how to work harder, because a lot of them are about that, they'll tell you have to sacrifice and sweat and risk and work really, really hard in order to make it. Life on Your Terms reveals why true fulfillment comes not just from success, but from aligning your mind and your heart, your energy and your actions with your own highest vision. This is not just about grinding harder or making another list or waiting for a breakthrough. It's about creating a life that you genuinely love, and that you genuinely love living, and that you're rich in both achievement and in purpose. So the Here's How on Life on Your Terms stands apart. Number one, it's an unbreakable blueprint for fulfillment. The methods in this book are simple, yet profound, designed to help you feel truly wealthy, happy, and connected, and not just act like it. It's not the fake it till you make it stuff, right? 2, mastery over your inner and outer world. This is truly important. Combining ancient wisdom with cutting-edge neuroscience, this book gives you direct practices to reprogram your mind and break free from limiting beliefs without years of trial and error. And 3, sustainable transformation, not short-lived motivation. Unlike self-help pumps that fade, Life on Your Terms empowers you to align your mind and your life with the natural flow of abundance, making success and happiness inevitable, not conditional. So this book is more than just a self-improvement book. It's a guide to crafting the life that you want and that only you can design with clarity and fulfillment and freedom. If you're ready to live a life of purpose, of wealth, and of lasting joy, Life on Your Terms is your key. So don't wait. Start creating a life you don't need to escape from and live it on your terms. The scroll right below you tells you how to get it from Amazon. If you go to Amazon, does it? Is that the scroll? No. Here. If you get my book from Amazon, I will gift you a $497 online video training on mastery, absolutely no charge. What you do is you go to rexsikes.com/book. It'll tell you what to do and how to get the bonus and do that. And in fact, if you order the book from Amazon, the hard copy or the paperback, you'll get the training before you even get the book. So that's my gift to you for getting the book. And with that, I want to say thank you for being here. I've so much enjoyed having Charlie Siegel, author of an incredible book today, being on the show. Go get his book, get my book, and fill your life with inspiration and joy and make good happen, not just for yourself, but for all of those around you. And let's make the world a better place. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Let's make the world a nicer, a friendlier, a more united, more wonderful place of opportunity, of possibility, and of resources available to all. With that, I'm Rex Sykes. As I always say, if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something it's a blessing, it's a blessing. Celebrate everything. And when you do, everything becomes a celebration.